Solomon said money is a defense. And when you got it, you're a whole lot more relaxed. And you find that when you are relaxed, you're comfortable, you're at ease, you're pleasant. But when you don't have that, you're tense, you're on edge. And when people are tense and on edge, they have a tendency to be snappy, say things out of the way. And because of that, it fuels an argument. And then you begin to not think. You know, you lose it. You see the TV on back in the day, they used to always have the TV when somebody goes historic, they just smack them across the face, cup down, pow, pow, and they shake and they wake up. You tend to lose it. And then one begins to dispute, and it's always going to come up. We don't have today because you bought that car and you shouldn't have. Or you bought them shoes and you shouldn't have. Or you bought that dress and you shouldn't have. There's always something that will fuel that fire. And then you got two people accusing one another instead of saying, let's pray about this and see how we can fix it. There is a argument that escalates, and then you begin to say things that you regret. Now watch this. Ecclesiastes 10 and 19. A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry. But money answereth all things. Money answereth all things. You notice, and we all have been into that predicament. If you're alive and well, whether you're married or single, if you're on your own, you're always going to have a time when you're not going to have that which answers, how did I resolve this? What must I do? And you find that when you don't have that to lay on, lean on, or depend on, you feel what? Helpless. Understand this. These situations come about so that you'll know who to lean on, who to depend on, who to trust in. And it is very important that you lean and depend on God and not rely on flesh, because Elder said flesh is what? 90% wrong. It'll lead you in a direction that is not, watch this, healthy. Healthy. Now, it is a known thing that, as Elder said, one woman is enough for any one man, especially if she can talk. Especially if she can talk. And if you find one that can talk, it's hard to out-talk them. And the only substance that we have is to be quiet. To be quiet. And no one wants to fuss or argue with themselves, so they will run out of steam. You don't fuel the fire, it's going to go out. And so in 1 Corinthians 17th chapter, the 7th chapter, seventh verse. 1 Corinthians 7th chapter, 7th verse. Paul says, "For I would that all men were even as myself, but every man hath his proper gift of God, one after this matter, and another after that." See, Paul was not a married man, but he had a lot of wisdom in helping even us today understand the principles of marriage and what's important in the marriage. These things are important. The 8th verse says, "I say therefore to the unmarried and widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I." And why do you think he's saying it's good for them to abide even as I? See, remember, he's unmarried. And why is Paul telling the widows and the unmarried that it's better? It is better for you to remain even as I. Why do you think that?
Go back to what Sister Lange was saying, when you by yourself most of the time, when you're single, you tend to have.
I think Paul was thinking more or less of the troubles that arise within the marriage, knowing that Satan's aim and object is to crucify you for getting married, for crucifying you for obeying what God has ordained to be. And I think in this sense he was saying it's better, because some people can't stand that crucifixion. They can't stand that cross. They just cannot tolerate being without that shield of protection. There's nothing like being protected. It's just like when the dog in the neighborhood jumped out and Sister Delaney jumped up into Minister Day's arms for protection. Suppose he had thrown her to the ground and ran. What kind of protection? Especially, in the vows. In the vows, it states. Let me read that to you. In the vows. It is the duty of the husband to provide for the support of his wife, to shelter her from danger. Isn't that something? To shelter her from danger. That's why it is given to the man to provide. Today's society, it's difficult for the man to provide by himself. It's difficult. And so the woman has to step out and be a help to the structuring and that will cause that defense. I can jump in my car and run up the road because, I got $1 or $2 to buy the gas, and if something happens, I got enough to get by. Well, if I don't have that, I ain't gonna jump in the car and go up the road because I don't have that defense. I don't have